I'll call this meeting order. 6 o'clock. Roll call up there in Zoom land, Judy, and then in person,
David Martin.
Lauren Fearman.
Paula Chelsky.
Julie McKenzie.
Jamie Dickey.
Craig Huffleter.
Jeff Fishwood.
Go ahead.
Lauren Baker. Emma Vestola. Julie Farrell.
All right. Thank you. All right. Look to a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, Dave makes the motion. Would like to second.
Second.
He seconds it. All right. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving along here.
Wait, sorry, I have to abstain. I wasn't there last month.
We're not in the minutes yet, though.
Oh, okay.
That's coming up next. All right. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of October 11th, 2023 regular meeting.
So moved.
Dave makes the motion. Let's.
I'll second.
Everybody likes the minutes. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then Judy abstains. She'll be there. You. All right. Communications. Board comments. Board comments. Come on, Snow. That's all I gotta say. Where's the other Dave?
Oh, yeah.
I like this. All right. All right. Public comments. Public comments. Nope. All right. Next, superintendent report. Go ahead, Lauren.
Great. Let's see. The VSA, VSBA joint meeting in Lake Maury was on October 26th and 27th. Paul and I attended workshops on the new model policy on wellness and comprehensive health. We went over the updated local wellness policy guide, which we will address at the next policy committee meeting. That policy covers goals around nutrition, education, and food service, physical education and activity, and comprehensive health education. The nutrition guidelines calls for all food that is served, sold, or provided for free to meet the smart snacks standards. And I'm bringing that up to talk about a little bit at our board meetings as we head into holiday seasons. And people are fond of bringing a great many things into the building. And just as a reminder for people that to qualify as a smart snack, it has to meet general nutrition standards, being a grain product that contains half or more whole grains by weight, has a first ingredient of fruit, vegetable, dairy food, or protein food, or is a combination food that contains at least a quarter cup of fruit or vegetables, such as a quarter cup of raisins with enriched pretzels. And the food must meet the nutrient standards for calories, sodium, fats, and total sugars, which means in general that plate of cupcakes is not going to meet these standards. So we agree as part of our policy that all of our schools will follow those standards, and just put out as a reminder to people that that is something that if you have a question about it, should talk to the principals of the building to make sure that we're following those recommendations. We'll be convening a local wellness team that will include parents, students, food service personnel, PE and health teachers, school board, administration, public school health professionals, which means our school nurses, counselors, and clinicians, to monitor all of our programs, ensure compliance. That is part of the new policy, requires that we have that kind of a committee in order to be looking at how we are doing things. We also attended the budget and financial oversight meeting while we were there, talking about all of the changes to our funding procedures, which make all of the ways we put our budget together a little more complicated. There is a Vermont School Board Association sponsored webinar that will happen on November 14th from noon to 1:30 that will go over the current state of the financial process. It's something that I would recommend for our board members to attend. And in fact, if you're interested, the registration link is available on the VSBA website. So go sign up for that.
Very interesting. Yes, it is. It is crazy, yeah, what they're doing. Yeah.
Yes.
You'd understand.
Judy?
Could you just repeat the date again?
Sure, November 14th. It is an online webinar. You go to the Vermont School Board Association website. You'll see they have links for registration for their events. There's no charge for it. You just have to register so that you'll get the Zoom link for it.
Okay.
And sometimes they do recordings of them that then are available later on. I don't know whether this is one that they'll have a recording for or not. Usually they do a tax line items and budgets. They do one every year. This one is a little longer and a little different because of all of the changes that are in place. And Paul just said it is, if you listen to the discussion about it, and we'll talk about when we do our budget presentation a little later, a lot of the things that you have to know in order to have a bottom line in the budget will not be available until into December, sometimes the end of December. And it all looks quite different than it has looked in the past. So I would recommend attending this webinar, if for no other reason than it lets you hear that there are changes that we have to do. Right?
Yeah, and hopefully they'll definitely record it and give you would think this importance
I
of
suspect
a
so.
matter. If you register, they'll give you, link afterwards to be able to watch it again.
Yeah.
You think, or they just give it to everybody. That's just fine.
Well, usually
So,
once the webinar happens,
yes.
they make a recording of it and make it available on the website. Occasionally they do ones where they just think you have to have been there in order for it to work. And they said whether this one was going to be recorded or not. I can't remember whether they said yes or no. Also, I wanted to let people know that this week, Emma Bastola and I attended the first in-person meetings of a year-long training on elevating the principal supervision process. This is a program that is run by the Vermont Superintendent Association and by the University of Washington Center for Educational Learning on all day Tuesday, and part of today was an introduction to the standards that we can use for using a kind of continuous improvement tool. It's an inquiry cycle to have a more equity-driven leadership process. We will be co-creating a shared vision of principles as equity-driven leaders. All of our central office and leadership team admin members will agree on what an equity-driven school leader means. As with all aspects of school improvement, a shared definition of success, a shared definition of what we want to see happen is essential for progress. There's lots of reading in this class. It's a year-long class. Lots of conversation with leaders from around the state. We will be receiving, Em and I both will receive individual coaching. We'll be able to work in small groups with people from around the state, and there will be 2 more in-person sessions over the course of the year. It's a really useful partnership for creating more intentional supervisory approach. I think it will be very valuable for us. And let's see, we're going to do that when we come to financial update. And most of the rest of what I have to share with you is about the budget. So if there are questions, I'll have to answer.
Right. Next, principal's report. Go ahead, Frank.
Thanks, Paul. So we are on track with our fire drills and our option-based drills for September and October. 2 in September and October. We do another one next week or so. After school program is really well attended. The enrollment's been between 40 and 50 days, so just about half the kids in the school. A couple of the really popular offerings lately have been yoga with Mrs. Kraber, and the chess club is really popular with Peter. So it's been really cool to see. Yeah, me too. Our parent-teacher group has been really active. We had a wonderful Halloween event in Belmont Village with the trunk or treat and all kinds of fun activities. They just completed a cookie dough fundraiser that raised $1,500. It was a local company up in Ferrisburg, Cookie Love. And we have a movie night coming up on the 17th, and the movie is Babe. Soccer season finished up. There was some really fun evening games under the lights at Dorsey. It's really enjoyed those. We have student-led conferences coming up on the 16th. Starting to prepare for those. And Lauren and Deb and Cheryl and I have worked on budgets. On the Mount Holly side, building-based sub is really the only addition that's been used. We've been using some ESSER funds for that, but that will be part of our plan moving forward.
All right. Thank you.
Right, so I hosted Donuts with Deb on the 20th. After hearing the guidelines for food, I may be in trouble for providing parents with donuts.
Depends on what time of day you do.
They won't take effect until after we approve.
Okay. Phew. We had 4 families participate, and I shared information about the NWBA MAPS assessment and what type of assessment it was and how to read parent reports, and I also linked that in my newsletter. We too had a Halloween parade and had a local trunk or treat event. Apparently it's never happened in Ludlow. So we had several families and local organizations participating in this, our first event. Okemo TV was there to watch us parade out around our parking lot, and local community organizations that participated were Fletcher Free Public Library and Okemo Mountain School. We too have student-led conferences coming up on the 16th, and students and teachers have been working on preparing ways in which they're going to be sharing their learning with families. PTG has reached out to Ludlow to offer us support in artists in residence, and I put that out to staff and teachers for ideas of what they might like to see happen, and then we'll also be asking kids what they think they might want to do once we have an idea of what might be available to do those things. As a school, we are continuing our ongoing PD and our faculty meetings around building or revisiting our Ruler Charter and making sure that's strong in place so we can move that forward for students. We too are up to date on our school drills. Our after-school program has anywhere from 35 to 40 students attending on a regular basis. Cheryl, Craig, Lauren, and I have been working on budget. We're looking at Ludlow to maintain our multi-grade structure, having a pre-K, K, a 1-2 combination, a 3-4, and a 5-6 combination with one of each section, and shifting one of the positions that we have currently to support math instruction. We're finding that while it's easier to differentiate with an English language arts curriculum because math is scaffolded on skills and you need some foundational skills before moving on to the next skill in mathematics, that it's more of a struggle to integrate math instruction in that way. So I am proposing that we have a elementary school math teacher to teach and offset math instruction in multi-grade classrooms. So in a 1-2, they might teach in first grade, while the other teacher teaches classroom teacher teaches second grade. Same with 3-4 and 5-6, and then that person can also be there to support math intervention blocks to really help fill those gaps. And based on what we've seen with the data in math, I think this will be something that will really support learning for our students in mathematics. We too, this year, have a building-based sub. Short-lived though, she's headed back to college in January to complete her student teaching, but definitely a valuable resource to have within the building to cover, particularly when people come in and get sick and need to go home, or call in last minute for a classroom. So just a very valuable resource and asset to have within our building.
So are you saying that instead of having 2 5-6s, you anticipate having 1 5-6,
Yes.
and then the extra faculty position will be this math
Yes.
specialist?
So in a 5-6 combination, one of the 5-6 classroom teacher would teach one grade level of math, and the math specialist would teach that other grade level. But then they would work collectively during math intervention time to support all the learners.
How many kids do you expect will be in the 5-6?
Next year, approximately 19.
The structure that Bill's describing is in a lot of ways similar to ours because we have a classroom teacher at each grade level. So we do that for math. So
And that's what I found in doing the research within the district. That's how it's done at the other schools as well. So Ludlow is the only school where a multi-grade teacher was tasked with teaching both grade levels of math.
Questions? All right, thank you, Deb. All right, next curriculum reports.
Need to share your screen? You should be able to unmute yourself.
I don't think I want to write.
No, oh, yes, that's right. Okay, sorry.
So
I'm looking at you on the screen.
in keeping with our practice we started in September, Emma and I have prepared a report of both literacy and math, and we're alternating who presents, so it's my turn to present this month. And we're going to follow the same structure you've been seeing. We're going to talk a bit about what students are learning in math and literacy, what the data says about how we're doing, and then some things that are going on to help continue to improve teaching. So first, math. What are we learning? The topic I chose to highlight here is strategies for effective instruction of fraction, addition, and subtraction. This information is actually taken from a slide in one of the OGAP training sessions that's going on right now on fraction, reasoning, addition, and subtraction being part of that. And as you can see, there are 5 key elements according to the research of what makes for good and effective instruction for teaching students how to add and subtract fractions. Contextual tasks are important, helps them make sense of the situation and understand magnitude of the fractions. Estimation and informal methods are used to help students develop strategies that make sense to them in combination with visual models to understand and also communicate those strategies. Unit fractions are very important. It's basically builds on the counting of whole number counting. You can do the same sorts of things with fractions. And then properties of operations for flexibility in how to perform calculations and the strategies that can. One thing I'll point out is you can see from the research cited, one goes back to 2009 and the other is Common Core in 2020. What we know about effective instruction has been around for a while. It's just continuing to improve our ability to actually put that into action. Here's a little more about what the research says about the development. And this is actually not just about fractions, but in general, what the research shows is if we focus too early on symbolic knowledge and procedures and algorithms, that it can get in the way of students being able to develop number and operation sense and the deep understanding that we want them to have. It's very dependent on memory when you work with symbols and manipulating symbols in a procedural kind of way. And memory can be subject to deterioration, which gets us into some trouble with retention of the knowledge. And so instead, what we're emphasizing is flexibility, adaptability, and that conceptual understanding that was talked about previously. Okay, so as some of you know, that's talking about there, so I'm going to give you a minute to think about the strategy here before I share some strategies. So it's titled Mental Strategies. Mental doesn't necessarily mean not without paper and pencil, so feel free to write down if you need to. It's just reasoning in your mind, okay? Here's a strategy. It was set up in the context vertically, which is kind of the way I learned how to do fractions, but another approach might be to rewrite it horizontally and then reorder and regroup some things to make it easier to do some of the calculations. Turns out you're using properties when you do that. Don't really care that an elementary student knows the properties, but the teachers want to understand what those properties are. A little more grouping. See a unit fraction in there in the form of 1/2. Students might be using the 3/4 in their mind as 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 as well. And then the question did not ask how far she biked. The question said, did she meet her goal? So you don't actually need to know how far she biked. You just need to know, did she reach her goal? And here you can look at your two fractions and decide that she did not. Yes. Without actually doing a calculation. I'm going to guess, at least for me, this is the way, one of these two would be the ways that I would have approached that problem, because that's how I'm starting procedurally and algorithmically. This is not bad. It's just a lot to keep track of and understand, and difficult for some students to access. That's the flexibility and the conceptual understanding.
And what grade level would kids try to do
This
that?
is 5th, later 4th, 5th grade. It's also not super efficient, even if you're good at it, as compared to the last one. So it's another thing. Okay, switching to literacy. We're focusing on fluency, and the slide talks about what the elements of fluency are, namely accuracy, reading with fewer errors, reading speed, the rate at which a student can read through the text, and prosody, the skill and the intonation and the expression of their reading. Interestingly enough, in prior sessions, you've heard me talk about math fluency, and there's a lot of parallels here. Accuracy is part of math fluency, rate, and we phrase it in terms of efficiency, same idea. And then prosody goes to the adaptability and appropriate use of the strategy. So there's a lot of parallels there. Fluency is important because it's how the students will build comprehension. They might be able to say the words and recognize the coding, but if they aren't a fluent reader, they're not necessarily comprehending the knowledge that's supposed to be coming from the reading. So that's why that's so important. And the way we go about doing this and helping students to become fluent is to be thoughtful about the text that we select and make sure we're selecting texts that involve sounds and symbols that they're already.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to add was using decodable control text until that orthographic mapping occurs in the brain is a practice that is really strategic in structured literacy systems. And then as soon as that fluency accuracy is built over time, they have wider access to text that they can automatically in their brain retrieve the word based on that orthographic mapping that happens.
Okay, switching to phase 2 here, how are students doing? I'm sort of overlaying two things, some actual data from our system and this concept from a book called Street Data. The authors are here, and in the slide deck, there's a link to a summary document for that book. The authors talk about it at 3 levels. Satellite level data, kind of like a satellite up in the space, where you're, and the corollary here is like benchmark data, system level. What you're looking at here is benchmark data for grades K through 9 from a system that we put in place for another benchmarking system we put in place called IXL. It's not just for benchmarking, it also provides instructional tools to teachers along the way. So what the satellite data tells us is maybe a focus area, something we need to pay attention to. For example, if you look at the 5th grade bars, you'll notice the orange gets higher. That's not a good sign. We want to understand why that's happening and then dig deeper into more data to try to figure out what to do about it. Satellite data raises flags. It doesn't necessarily give you enough to go on to know what to do about it. But if you don't have it, you don't even know that you have the issue. You don't know what you don't know. The next level is map level data, like Google Map kind of they're talking about. So you're zooming down in from space. What I did here, since I talked about 5th grade on the last slide, is I went into our measures of academic progress data from this fall, and I looked at the grade 5 grade report and I honed in on number and operations, and I just screenshot from the 4 elementary buildings. And you can see from the bars, we have a pretty wide disparity in terms of what's happening in the buildings. So there's a school here doing very well that we want to understand what they're doing and why it's working so well, and bring in the other teachers from the other buildings to talk about that and see how we can learn from each other. There are also some strengths for the buildings that don't have as big a blue or green bar, that they have something to bring to the conversation and can build on those strengths. But we still don't know exactly what to do, but now we're going, okay, let's look in this area and figure out what we should do next and find ways to collaborate about that. Then you get down to what they call street level data. This is where you really can make decisions about instructional shifts in a classroom that a teacher can make with students to make improvements. The examples I'm showing you here are from iExcel, the top 2 screenshots. The data in the system based on student activity and answers to questions that they provide group students for the teacher. So the teacher knows that students in group 1 who are identified to that teacher are ready to be working on these things. Students in group 3 are ready to be working on these things. So small group instruction is informed this way. We also have individual student diagnostic action plans, and that's what you're seeing down here, is this particular student's what they should be looking at on an individual basis. We're looking to get more of this kind of data from program work in the classrooms to help make those sorts of decisions. Similarly, on the literacy side, this is from our map growth data from the fall, and you can see that what Emma's decided to pull in is the overall achievement level for each of the buildings, all of the grades. So these are, again, building level satellite views that might highlight one or more focus areas to look at. Corollary on the map as in Google Map side, what she's pulled out is reading fluency data. The top are second grade results. So if you start here in this middle, we have 26% are oral reading scores, meaning the students are beginning to get some of that fluency in their reading abilities, and 74% are building their foundational skills to get there, appropriate for the second grade. Maybe not the quite mix we want, but it is expected that they're still developing that. Over here, you can see a breakdown of how the oral reading breaks down even further with some additional statistics. And then here it starts to point at phonological awareness and phonics is a place we should look to try to make improvements. And then you have similar data here. At the street level example on the literacy side, kind of relates to what we were talking about with the reading fluency and what they were learning. Here's a 3rd or 4th grade piece of text. That's the grade level this text aligns with. These are the skills that you would be working on based on what the data has told us about where students are. And this is the context in which you would be working on it. And these are tools the teacher can use if you check them. Can people on Zoom hear me?
I'm pretty sure we're good so far.
Okay.
No,
Yes, on.
no one said nothing yet.
Okay, so that's the data piece. Now to wrap up, what are we doing to continue to improve teaching and learning? In math, I've been talking a lot about OGAP training. We are about to finish the 3rd of 4 sessions. A second round of multiplicative coming up later in the year, and then the 4th session will be in the spring. What we're now starting to do, because we're starting to get a cohort and a capacity of teachers who've been through it, is actually employ this sort of a cycle, which is common across all of the strands in the classrooms, to do some of the things that we talked about in terms of using data to inform instruction. So the idea would be we take an item from the OGAP item bank for fractions, say, because it's an area we think our students need to work on. We collect that data, the student thinking is on paper, we get people together, we analyze that data and decide what it's saying about what students can do and what students still need to be working on, and then we move back and set the review. And that's another example of the street level data that we talked about. On the literacy side, we have some upcoming learning walks planned in each of the elementary buildings. A lot of work went into collaborating with the principals and with Better Lesson. Ella coordinated all that to try to decide what do we want to get out of the learning walks. And what you see on the left is that the outcome we're going in with is to make sure that we all understand the structure and purpose of a module lesson. The indicators are things that people who are participating in the learning walk will look for when they're in the classrooms to get a sense for where we are with regard to that. And the group that's performing the learning walk will be collaborating in between visiting classrooms and deciding on next steps based on the data.
I have a question. You said in one of the earlier slides, you depicted that there's some variability between, I guess, scores from, from building to building. Can you talk a little bit about what drives a dramatic difference like that? Is it simply educator? What are sort of the factors that?
It could be several. I mean, it could be attributed to the educator. It could be attributed to the cohort of students in the room. It could be attributed to the time of year and where we're at, given our program and how it's designed versus some of these benchmark assessments and what they're expecting at different points along the way. Because there's really no one answer to that question, that's why you need to drill down and get data like street data to figure out exactly what's going on. Certainly, there's opportunity to be looking at different instructional practices that different teachers may bring within a building and across buildings, especially across buildings in a system our size, because they might be implementing the same practice, but how they implement it and the outcome that comes from that could be different. And so, talking about that allows them to learn from each other.
Interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so now we got the facilities director's report, and that's going to be a Lauren, right?
Yeah, Todd is unfortunately, or fortunately for Todd, is off on vacation. So he delivered this report to the TRSU board and left it for us to share with anybody interested tonight. For Mount Holly, the PFAS issue is still stalled at the state level, waiting for additional permitting to happen. There's been some funding released, 500,000 with restrictions.
Well,
right?
once we get the permit, we get it.
So we're basically waiting. It is more complex than ever. Todd has scheduled some update to deliver an update for us with Craig Jewett from Otter Creek Engineering. We'll talk to the boards next month to go over just where things are. The second round of grants has been completed for the wood boilers for Ludlow-Mount Holly District. And Todd is working with Craig Hutfader to add some additional security cameras to Mount Holly. Ludlow Elementary infrared testing is being scheduled for the roof to determine thickness and effectiveness of insulation. And there's some 3D imaging of both schools that has been completed. And I don't think we need to share the Green Mountain side.
Anybody any questions like that?
If you have questions, we'll
Yes.
pass them on to Todd.
Right. Sounds like everything's normal with the PFAS situation. Working at a very fast pace in the state. They're working. Ooh. All right.
We've been right along.
As long as we get that permit, we'll be good. All right. Well, hey, speaking of permits, we got money.
Well, one of the things with PFAS we're trying to figure out is the project is $1.1 million to be building and doing the water.
Yep.
We've been told it's going to be paid for. We have a partial grant we've been using, and now we have this 500,000. So there's still a gap in there that they keep saying, yeah, we'll pay for it, but no one's really come forward and saying, no, we'll pay for it. So hopefully Craig will have some answers next month.
The other
The other one.
The other grant.
Yes, again, using an email. Wait, who did that say?
Yeah.
Todd stole my thunder that the grants have been submitted to round 2 for the wood heat. And Eric's quite confident we'll get it. We'll see what floor that comes out to be. That would be for both buildings. You have October financials in your the folder for those who haven't looked at it. Only spent about 15% of the budget, which is a little lower than I would expect, but we'll run with that. Because a lot of this, because of the way the teachers are paid, we have a huge portion of that at the end of December. So I'm not worried about that at all. And have all the audits back. I'm in the process of going through the drafts, which is tedious work, finding out where they put my numbers, how to match them up. And so those who've got plenty of time to be able to use that fund balance for our budget. That's what we will do based on our numbers. Questions? We have a lot of budget stuff, so I'm not going to.
Gonna go with Cheryl? All right. Thanks, Cheryl. All right, moving on. Let's see, we've got some old business here. So the superintendent search is going along pretty good. We had the meeting October 26th at Cavendish, and we were able to meet with David, and it went really well. Didn't last too long. We were able to form a committee, so we decided to have a committee with 4 board members, 2 from each district, Julie and myself, unless anybody else would like to do it. I would like to ask. And then we have Steve and Adrian from the Green Mountain side. And then we have 1 administrator, Cheryl, from the administration office, because you want to do it right. And then we need 2 principals, 1 from each side. So would Greg, would anyone like to be on the committee? Would anybody like to be on the committee?
Can we get back to you?
Can you get back? Yes, that's fine. Just need to know by like the end of the month.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because the first meeting is December 14th. Just to let you
I
know.
think we're both wanting to do it, so.
Right. So December 14th and 19th are the 2 meetings you must attend. This is like,
Yeah.
just
What
let you
were
know.
the 14 and what?
December 14th and December 19th are like 2. That's part of the little, for the screening committee. And those expect to be 2 to 3 hours long. So those will be in person somewhere, probably in Cavendish. I can say. But I figured Cavendish is a good central location between both districts. All right, let's see what else. Now we're still working on 2 parents. I think I had a parent reach out to me from Green Mountain side, or back from them. So if any parents want to join the committee, the screen for the superintendent, email me. Let's see, we need 2 teachers, and Emma sent a letter to the union to get 2 teachers, so from 1 from each school district. So that's how that, and that's the whole committee. And then we also came up with a list at the TRSU board meeting. We came up with our list of what we wanted an application letter. We shared that on Google Drive, so that was pretty cool. I forwarded that all over to David, and he's going to send me a draft to look at, go from there. So things are moving right along with the superintendent search, and NASDAQ is great to work with. These guys know what they're doing. That's it. That's all I have for that update.
Are they doing all the advertising themselves? as
Yep.
well? Asking about parks, right? So they're not-
They're doing all of their own advertising, and I think they have a school spring. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I will ask Dave. That's a good question. I'll
They
talk to
usually
him.
do.
Yeah, that's really you waiting for you to look at it.
Right. That's fine. Yeah.
They do it on their own site.
All right. Anything else? So that's it.
Well,
Questions?
is there something that you'd like us to make in our parent newsletters to go out?
Yes, that would be great. Please, yes. Just let them know that we're looking for people on the screening committee, and I will give you this. This is like the, I'll just give it to you because I'll have to pass that down. That is what you can send with them. The gray is they got to be able to make those.
Okay.
December 14th and the 19th. So those
Okay.
are the screening committee. But yeah, that's great. Yes, if you could just reach out, that's awesome. So the deadline's end of November. End of November. Yep.
Deadline.
Be on the committee.
So
Yeah, to set the committee. Yes.
And you said how many parents are you looking for?
2 parents, just a parent from each district.
Right, so-
1 from each side. Yeah, we don't want to make that's already 11 people. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 11. Yeah, we don't want to go much bigger than that. So
So,
Are they open meetings?
yes, we're open meetings. Anybody can go to them. Yes.
So it's like both principals could come, one is
Right.
as a member and one as a.
Right. True. Yes. Yes, that is true. All right. Anything else on that? All right. Let's see where am I at? Okay. Next, policies. We got some second reads here and adoption. F9, transportation. This one here, we brought back to the committee and modified us on F9 in the center of the first paragraph. We put the provision of bus transportation is contingent on the availability of licensed personnel. So we wanted to make sure we were clear that as long as we have a bus driver, there will be transportation. So, and that was only the addition we did to it. So I would like to make a motion to approve F9 transportation.
So moved.
All right, Steve Martin makes the motion.
Second.
Right, Julie seconds it. We're all good with that policy? All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right. And next is G10 cybersecurity. And let's see. Here, okay, this one here, yep, on page 2, D, it said all employees shall undergo annual cybersecurity awareness training provided by the TRSU. So that was what we added to this policy as well. So that was the only change to the policy that we made. So make a motion to approve this G10 cybersecurity policy.
So moved.
All right, Dave Van makes the motion. Second.
Second.
All right, Julie seconds it. Good with that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, yeah. Excellent. All right, new business. Hey, look at that. Some more policies coming right down the road here. All right, the first one is H3, which is community use of school facilities. And so the first sentence, I think it is, yeah, it's a sentence, is was brought up at the TSU board meeting about the use of that prohibits all community use of school facilities. And they were talking about, does that mean like they cannot use the playground? Or like with this saying this means like the public cannot use the playground. So by definition of this policy, it says for educational purposes, programs, and therefore prohibits all community use of school facilities. So the TRSU wants us to bring it back and take a look at the committee and kind of like see if we can work with that, because that means like no one can use the facilities at the school because the school owns the property. I mean, you know, so that's what it was pretty much talked about. So we're going to bring it back to the committee about that. So
Because a lot of people like to
use
the playground.
right, exactly, exactly on the playground, and same thing for everybody, you know, trails, whatever we have, you know, it's like, you know, what can we do to make it so they can do it? I don't know yet. That we'll worry about the policy committee.
Well, we do permit people to use the playgrounds and the trails, just not during school hours.
Okay.
And that's certainly the intent from this is
Right.
it's legal right to preserve facilities exclusively for the purpose of conducting its education programs. And
Right.
7:00 at night, we're not conducting our education programs. So facilities, and we usually have things in individual buildings that are specific about when and how particular trails and areas can be used. I would agree that we want to make clear within the policy where those particular permissions can be found. So that, you know, we are not saying no one can ever set foot on school grounds.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
We are saying that you can't come at noon on the school day and use the playground.
Right. Yep. I agree with that. So, yep.
So you're going to write words to get that
Yeah.
thought
Right.
across.
Yeah. The committee will work together and hash that out and bring it back to look at it again, see what the board thinks.
The intent of this policy is really about the buildings.
Yeah.
And the trouble is that our facilities do also include our playgrounds. The intent of this policy was not to say whether people could walk trails.
Well, and the town uses the Yeah, the town meeting is here. All right.
Right.
with our permission.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, no, but right.
Which is the point of this, is that we prohibit community use of school facilities unless we give them permission. So, right, which is the rest of this.
Right.
That school facilities are available to individuals and community groups without discrimination in accordance with this policy, which says you can use it under these circumstances. So you can also have in here that you can use the playgrounds during times that are set up.
Yep. Anybody else got anything on this? All right. Yep. So this will be back to look. We'll go back to the committee. So you ready, Judy, for that? In our next meeting. Yeah. All right. And then the next one was C2 board meeting agenda preparation and distribution. So this one, I think, we just added like newly revised Robert's Rules of Order for how to conduct it. We put at our annual meeting for the schedule. I think that's when we decide, but pretty
Yeah, we need to pull out that extra
Right.
so that it just says
annual
regular meetings of the board will be held at the place and time decided
at the annual.
using the word at instead of the symbol.
Yeah.
At the annual meeting.
Right.
And that's the end of that sentence.
Yep.
The next sentence begins,
The
the meeting
meetings.
schedule will be published.
Right. Yep. There you go. Yeah. Everybody good with that agenda for now? Got a whole month to look at it. That policy, sorry.
And Dave pointed out that, there are footnotes, numbers in here, and then no footnotes with them. The initial thing that we get from the VSBA usually has a whole series of footnotes in it. When we turn it into policy, we generally remove that additional information because it makes it 12 pages long. We just need to pull the ones and twos out of the text. Then otherwise, we've got a reference to nothing. So,
All right. Next, 11, student clubs and activities. I don't know if we did anything to this. I don't remember.
this one had, was that combination of the two of them. And it has gone back just to have some of the wording corrected.
Right, yeah, we combined it, yeah, made it into one. Yeah, that's what the policy committee is doing a good job too. It's kind of like combining ones we can, shorten them up a little bit so they're not too long. We're all good with that one, F11. All right, and then the last one is the H4 distribution of non-school sponsored literature in the schools.
Where does political fit into this?
Now, we're safe with.
I mean, is it, it's like, come and have flyers that say, vote yes or vote this?
I don't know.
How, you know, how that would fit in?
I haven't memorized the policy, so I
I mean, I guess I don't need an answer now.
No, I know, but what you're saying is that should be in there.
Well,
Like something.
right, one way or the other, it should be, it ought to be addressed.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. Maybe.
So it is to confirm the literature includes the names of people or organizations sponsoring it, and that there's no implication that it's endorsed by the school district, that it doesn't fall into, there's a series of prohibited categories, can't be libelous, defamatory, can't violate federal, state law, can't advocate the use or availability of substances, can't incite violence, interfere or advocate interference with rights of individuals, primarily commercial in nature, have a primary purpose of fundraising.
Where did this come from?
All of these policies are model policies that are either required or recommended by the Vermont School Board Association.
So I would assume someone has reviewed this for like First Amendment compliance.
Absolutely. They do not recommend or require anything that hasn't been vetted by the attorneys. And because this one is not required in this process, it's recommended. If there are things you want to add, subtract,
Right.
or not have it at all, those are things you can do. You know, we would general, if we think that it is something that might infringe or have an effect on people's rights, we can always clear it both with our attorneys or with the VSBA.
Right, but I see what you're saying, though, if someone comes and distributes to like vote a certain way, like, is that what you mean?
Yeah, right, yeah. As part of a campaign, you know, or either for an election.
Right.
I mean, just me, it ought to be clear whether that's permitted or not permitted.
Yep.
And as I read it, I'm not quite sure. You know, you have to sort of read carefully to figure out whether it is or not.
Right.
Well, it's everything, it seems, my reading is that everything is up to the superintendent's discretion,
Well, beyond if
as long as
if
there's
it
no viewpoint discrimination.
if it does any of these 7 things, then you can't have it. But it's true. I don't believe there's anything in here that says you can't distribute political. So you can't distribute something that is about candidates or whatever. You can certainly put that in as on school grounds. We are not going to permit the distribution, and you just can't say about one side or the other. You have to say about anything related to current elections or things along those lines.
So that would be number 8. Added.
Right, well, yeah, we'll bring it back to the committee, that's fine.
Yeah, maybe you can ask somebody at DSBA.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, while we're talking about books, the books, Golden Dome books, where do those come from? Are they an outside company, or is that from the state that comes, the books that come to the elementary school as a?
I'm sorry, what books?
They're called Golden Dome books.
I know where Golden Dome books are books that the state library system, they vote, it's an organization, it used to previously was, it's called previously, they vote, not Caldecott, it's in the state of Vermont, and the state libraries vote, I don't know if it's the state libraries or it's education libraries vote on Golden Dome books, as well as, that's for grades 4 through 8, and there's another one that's not Golden Domes for K through 4, and so it's librarians, professionals, and all throughout the state who post these books, and then they have kids vote on which one gets chosen every year. So that's where that comes from.
And they bring them to the school.
Librarians purchase them, and then they talk about them in their program. Yeah. What was your question, John?
Red Clover.
Red Clover, thank you. Red Clover is the K through 3, and then Golden Dome is the 3 through 8 program. Might be 3 through 6. Excuse me.
On each floor, we'll bring it all back, and no problem. All right, now for the highlight of the night. The proposed budget, this year 25. Hand it over here to Lauren.
So we're going to go through this presentation. These materials, along with Cheryl's wonderful spreadsheets, will all be available in a folder that will be on the TRSU website. These were shared with our board members, but it'll be available to public along with the TRSU folder, and materials are already on the trsu.org website. The Ludlow-Mount things will be available. Kelly will have them up there shared with everybody tomorrow, and then Green Mountain will be up there as well. So just to start with, the current influences on our budget. This is not just Ludlow-Mount, this is all of our budgets. We have the end of ESSER funding. It's been referred to as the ESSER cliff is coming up as of September of 2024. All of that ESSER funding has to be spent. And that we've used that primarily for some additional personnel, professional development, using it for some other resources. We're not feeling as much of a cliff as some other people have felt. We did use our funding for a lot of professional development for the purchase of the new literacy curriculum. Those resources, we purchase access to some things online, and the things that we have in hand are good for many years to come yet. Carol, did you have something to say already? Okay. We do have the two positions that we added in, the one that Emma has as K-6 literacy coordinator and Julie has as K-12 math coordinator. Those are positions that ran for all of last year, will run for this year. The funding for those disappears as of the end of this year. The other context, in addition to the loss of our ESSER funding for some things, inflation, which was running at 8.6% last year, has slowed down. Costs over the last year or so are still way up. We have declining enrollment throughout the TRSU, not so much within Mount Holly, has stayed pretty consistent. Ludlow has dropped a little over the last 5-6 years, but this has stayed consistent over the last 2 or 3. We do have, if you look at over the last 5 to 10 years, we have significantly fewer students in the TRSU as a whole, but we have more students with intensive needs. And we are proposing the addition of a special education assistant director at the TRSU level that I'll talk about more. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. We have aging buildings. We have some ADA compliance issues and PCB remediation within the high school that has contributed to overall costs. And within Ludlow-Mount Holly, we're talking about a bond, which will mean an interest payment going along with it. All of those are increases to our budgets. Act 127, which updates the pupil weights in the school funding formula, which there are winners and losers statewide to that, and it's not entirely clear which side of that we're on at the moment. And we're not going to know for another few weeks. Act 173, which is changes to funding students served through special education. Again, we've gone from one system that gave us excess costs. We still get excess costs in some aspects, but we're also on a block grant, and sometimes that works to our advantage and sometimes not. We'll talk about that a little bit further. So we have all of these influences kind of coming together right now. In addition, we have an increase of 16.4% for health benefits over the coming year, and our contractual wage increases for our bargaining units will be at 4.75% next year. So that's our context, which is we're recommending a budget of $8,727,010 for FY25. That is a 13.81% increase over this year's budget. The primary drivers of that are we have an increase in the capital reserve budget. That's for the bond interest payment. We're anticipating putting the bond forward at the March election, and assuming that it is passed, we want to budget it for the interest payment. We have a $569,000 increase in the assessment cost for the TRSU. That is due to several things, including the hike in our benefits and salary costs, but it is primarily due to increases in special education, one of which is the additional position that we are recommending. And we're recommending that we have within our SU, we have 240 students who have an IEP. And in general, you expect to have the average percentage of special education need is at 10 to 11%. If we were at that rate of 10 to 11%, that would mean we had 2,400 students within the SU. We do not. We have just under 900 students. If we had 2,400 students in a district that size, you would have a special education director, an assistant director of special education, a supervisor for K-6, a supervisor for 712, and a point person in every one of your buildings. We have a special education director. And we have 240 students with increasing needs. So we're making the proposal that we need to add in, at a minimum, an assistant to be able to be in our schools, providing our special education teachers with some direct support. We also have an increase for the tuition expenses that we pay for our students in grades 7 to 12 of $289,000. Overall, the Ludlow-Mount Holly budget for salary and benefits percentage is 38.5. I bring this up mostly because you usually have salary and benefits as a percentage of the total school budget at around 60 to 70%. The reason it is lower for Ludlow-Mount Holly is because 28% is going to pay tuition costs for our 712 students, instead of going to pay salary and benefits for the teachers of those 712 students.
I just have a little add-on to this.
Yep.
Just to be clear, that interest payment is the first year we only pay interest, we don't pay the principal. Next year we have the interest that would go down slightly, but next year we need 26. We have a $500,000 roughly principal in addition to that.
All of which is an important thing to do. You know, the bond looks like what we want to do. It is important for everybody to be understanding what that does to the budget for the next several years. So that's a pretty pie chart that lets you see what the big chunks are, where the money goes. Goes to salaries, goes to tuition, goes to benefits, and goes to the assessment from the TRSU. And then the less pretty are salaries and benefits, purchase services, all of the object categories. And while we still have the percentage increase, decrease listed in there, and that is frequently deceptive. You see something like the 12,000% increase in the capital transportation and HRA reserve. That's where the bond interest is showing up. And the percentage is not as important as the total number. Overall, that gives us a 13.81% increase over the previous year. We're used to seeing increases more in the 3 to 4% range. The part of the reason why this is up so high are these large increases in health benefits, the addition of the bond, and our reorganization of technology. We're going to talk about that, and this addition of the special education position. There's the TRSU budget summary. The increase within central office is as high as it is because we are putting in these additional positions. Our transportation budget overall has gone down. We have one less bus running and fewer costs as a result of that.
So it's rebound bus payments. It's a big increase.
You go back for a second to the previous.
Maybe. Yes.
It looks like so that we're paying on the assessment line an additional 569,000,
Yes.
and the total difference on the next slide was that it's up 870. On the next slide, the total cost for everybody was 875. So it looks like we're paying like 3/4 of the TRS2 increase. Is that, did I have that wrong?
You're just looking at special ed. That assessment line is for all the central office as well as special ed and transportation. So it's the
Oh, I see. Okay.
it's the 1.3 million.
Oh.
So the subtotal increase
Oh, I
for
see.
the TRSU is
Okay.
1.3.
Got it.
Your share, Ludlow-Mount Holly's share of that
Okay.
is 569.
Okay.
Green Mountain's paying the other
And every
800,000.
one of those assessment lines is assessed differently. Transportation is actual expense. Special ed is based on child count. That's done December 1st every year. And the central office is, tech is done more on enrollment.
Yeah, that makes sense, sorry.
No, that's
No,
the point of it is,
I read the wrong line.
it's a lot and a lot of numbers. And as Cheryl just said, things are calculated in different ways. And every year, the state, for the last couple of years, has done something a little bit differently. So there's always a lot of explanation to go along with it. Right? Let's see if we went over that. So we're reorganizing, we're proposing the reorganization of our technology department. And we're going to be looking at bringing, at the moment, we have several of our technology pieces that are still housed under each one of the school districts. So rather than all being together, even though this is an aligned system, that we are doing the same things for all of our schools. And as Cheryl can talk about in better detail, when we try to pay for things, that we are lining up for the whole SU, we buy as an SU, but then we have to pay for it with a payment from each school district. The people we're paying are frequently, it creates problems, right? They don't have a contract with Ludlow-Mount, they have a contract with the TRSU and don't understand why they're being paid in this separate way. Since we have our systems aligned at this point, it makes better sense for us to have it under the umbrella. That creates initially a big increase because we are bringing things into the TRSU budget that were previously supported back out. So we're looking to continue to support the ESSER-funded math and literacy curriculum efforts. We want to shift the director of technology role so that it becomes connected with instruction in the classroom. And that is it's something we will be doing regardless of the reorganization. That's about how we structure that position. But in order to better support that position, we would like to keep the size of the department as it is. That department has 4 people in it, the director and 3 support people. We're going to keep the director as a 1 FTE, full-time equivalent. We're going to add a TRSU assistant to the director of technology, data manager. The data manager position is one that most school districts in Vermont and around the country have been adding over the last 10 years because we moved into a data-driven instruction system where our teachers need to be looking at test data and data about where our student performance is to drive their instruction. And at the moment, the having to do that work lands either on our principals or on the teachers themselves. It's not a really productive use of their time. And we're less involved in some of the hardware issues as we've spent more time using it. We've had, we're going to change our current 3 tech support positions, which are called IT coordinator positions. We've had 2 at Green Mountain and 1 at Ludlow-Mount, and going to instead have those 3 positions. We will have an assistant director, we will have a tech support person with a K-6 focus, all 4 of our elementary schools, and a tech support specialist with a 7-12 focus. But both of those tech support people will be as TRSU employees rather than school district employees, available for us to deploy wherever they are needed, whenever we need them to go. So that we don't have to say, and we haven't, we've been doing this anyway. We've had our tech support people who are technically Green Mountain School District employees have been available to support positions and things that we needed to do within Mount Holly and Ludlow, because we need them. So we want to make that true. So we're going to eliminate those district-only positions and wind up with these additional positions. Essentially,
Can I speak to the data manager?
yes.
So one other critical area that we have is tracking our students and reporting them to the state. And this, for the Ludlow-Mount side, is really crucial in that we have students all over the place. And Lauren will tell you right now, Lauren Baker, that she is trying to find these kids, make sure that other schools report them correctly so that we get credit for them, because that's where our long-term weighted membership or funding formula is going to come from. So it's really someone to do that job, focus on it, to track our kids, or kids that are to know that power school system, to be able to help us. It's crucial for your funding. All the other educational piece of it, there's a huge financial aspect that comes with that.
So I have about, in the TRSU presentation, there's about another 4 slides about all of this, if you're interested to go to that to see that full description. So we're bringing all of the technology expenses under the TRSU umbrella. The bottom line, there will be a net savings to Ludlow budget of $34,000 as we align costs more directly with tech support needs, enrollment, staff members in the district. Greenmount will see a net increase of $33,000. And everybody gains the benefit of improved technology integration with curriculum instruction and assessment.
Judy, yep. Judy, go ahead, you got them.
Oh, no, she can unmute herself,
Oh, she can? Oh, okay.
but I
Yep.
can do it too. So there you go.
I just had a hard time hearing what Cheryl was explaining, but I think I got it with Lauren's recap. So my concern was about the Ludlow-Mount Holly schools with not having a dedicated person. Would it impact the service to the schools? I see there's a net savings, but I'm concerned that we had 1 position and they had 2 in Green Mountain, and now there's 2, and we're a little bit further away and less schools. I just wondered if there will be an impact to the service to the schools.
It's a completely reasonable question, and a part of what we have spent some time, Lauren Baker can talk about it too, but we've spent some time doing some time study things over the course of this year. Both Deb and Craig have looked at the amount of time that they need as somebody in their buildings, looking at the amount of time that we need for all of our tech support people in the buildings. We're quite confident, given what we've seen over the last couple of years, that all of our schools' needs can be met in this way without a loss of support or service standing.
And how do they get assigned to the buildings? Is there like a ticket system or something like that?
Yes, we have a ticket system where when there is a particular concern, that people are supposed to enter it, which then all of our tech support people, including the director, can see and then assign it out. Do you want to talk to that at all, Lauren?
Well, a lot of it's can be done in one place. They don't have to physically be in the building. Yeah, that was important.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, where will these tech people be based? Are they based at the administrative offices, or just because of the transportation and things like that in between the schools? I'm just wondering, curious where they'll be based.
So we would have our data manager based at central office, and would likely have our tech, the person whose primary focus is 712 would stay at Green Mountain, and then the person handling our elementary schools would have office space available in all of the schools and would travel between them. As he said, the idea, though, is that all 3 of those people, although primarily the 2 tech support people, wherever they are physically located, are available to get up and go to, if they need to be doing something in person, they can go there. I would suspect that we would probably set up, as we had set up with somebody who was sharing space between multiple schools already. They usually schedule a time when they're expected to be in each building. And then we would probably do the same thing once we know who that person's going to be, of setting it up so that you would expect them to be during these hours in this particular building unless something else came up. So you set up a default expectation for where they'll be so people know when to find them, and then they move as they're needed. Lauren?
Yeah, and I'd just add to that, that many more of the tickets that we're getting recently have to do with how they use the system. And if we're going to shift the focus of the tech director to being, more involved with the tech integration sort of part of it, that's the primary support that we're looking to need. A lot of the device kind of support. I mean, we're not teaching people how to use a mouse anymore, kind of thing. So there's just been a pretty good shift in what the types of support is that's needed, and it's less, hands-on stuff. It's really more helping people use things, which are mostly cloud-based systems anyway.
And with any kind of a change, we've looked at it, done some studying of it, had the people who are involved in both giving and receiving the services talk about what they think will work best. This is the system that they believe will work, and we won't really know until we do it.
So this is, just so I understand, a net increase of 1 FTE for the technology department.
No, it's not. It is.
Oh.
So at the moment, we have a tech director,
Okay.
and then we have 3 tech support people.
Okay.
We are going to have a tech director, an assistant director, data manager, and 2 tech support people. So we have 4. We're going to continue to have 4,
Got it.
but their duties are going to be redistributed to what we've seen over the last 5-10 years as being what our needs are, which are different from they used to be.
Thank you.
Right?
Yep.
Special education. Our costs are up because we are this is a proposal for an addition. This is at the TRSU. All special education costs are at the TRSU level. This will be an increase in salary and benefits for an administrative level position. As I said before, if we, with the 240 students with IEPs that we have, that is an outsized number given our total number of students. The expectation for the kind of support that number of new students needs is 4 people at a supervisory level. We currently have 1. Mary does a great job for us, Mary Barton. It is not possible for her to do all of the things that she does, to manage things at a state compliance level, as well as handling the increased needs of the homeless population, which are handled through special services, and also be in our buildings on a regular basis, providing direct support to our special educators, helping them with changes to our systems, seeing what's happening in the buildings. She's flat out and unable to do that, and that's a problem within our buildings, to not have at a supervisory level someone who is able to be in the buildings with our special education teachers on a regular basis. We had at the TRSU level, when we talked about this last week, one of the board members said that I made the statement that if we were really going to do what we ought to do, and I stand by this, we wouldn't be adding 1, we'd be adding 2. We'd be adding a person to be a K-6 supervisor and somebody to be a 7-12 supervisor, and that would include Ludlow-Mount 7-12 students that are in other locations. And we had a board member who said, why aren't we doing that? We'll come forwards next month with what those costs are. And if people want to give us money to do that, that'd be great. But at a minimum, we need to have the 1. So that's an increase in salaries. We also have an increase, as you can see, of tuition for our outplaced students of about $400,000, a little less than that. The health insurance increases affects everybody, but also special education. Cheryl could talk about the details of the replacement of our special education van, which has reached the end of its useful life.
It's got almost 200,000 miles on it. It owes us nothing. And the student that's currently, it's a handicap accessible van. Student on next year. And so my proposal is to replace that so that we can get more passenger van, get more students, and use it for one of our out-of-district transportation. I think we have 7 vendors that we use, and it can range anywhere from like $200 to $450 a day to transport students depending on location, how many, all these other things. So I'm looking to continue to use the driver that we have, replace the van, which will pay for itself in the first year, and then decrease that cost.
Judy, did you have a question, or is your hand just still up? Okay. All right. We will also have an increased number of para-educators supporting students who go to a skills-based program at Springfield. While there are 3 or 4 paras coming from the Green-Mount budget, which really is just, it's not an actual increase because we are shifting it from being in the Green-Mount budget to being in the TRSU budget. So the cost is the same, it's just in a different location. And that doesn't, if they are Green-Mount students, it doesn't get assessed to Ludlow, it gets assessed back. Others, we do have 1 or 2 additional paras that we will need for students who are going to DP. And then I'm going to have you talk about our last period.
So the idea being grant, we're just finding that we're getting less money. We're still trying to put as many expenses in there, as well as having who we have.
What are they? What is,
Idea B, it's a special ed federal grant.
and CODA?
Oh, a CODA, I'm sorry. CODA is a certified occupational therapist. So we're kind of bumping up against what we have available for money. And as health insurance and raises keep happening, that's pushing that ceiling. So we've made the decision to move, at least we have an OT as well that will stay in IDAB, move the code in there so we have some more flexibility.
We do have 2 special.
Can you say something about the tuition for outplacement?
Sure.
It's a big increase.
It's just,
I mean, it's some luck of the draw.
Yep.
I mean,
it's,
We
you know,
have,
as we're moving 5 paras in to support students going to Golden Key, we're also paying tuition for the students that they're going. And then some new students come.
and it is, this unfortunately is something that we frequently cannot prepare for. So that when we know we have students who have moved in and have needs since our last budget, and when we have students who need to be outplaced because of what their needs are and their tuition is high because of the intensive needs, it is not something that we can say no to.
So that's just the students that live in Ludlow,
No.
right?
Within the supervisory, the whole of Baltimore, Andover, Cabbage, Chester, Ludlow.
And what gets assessed, this is our total tuition increase. What gets assessed back to Ludlow is based on
Child count.
how many students are.
As of December 1st, what students are on. And
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the health insurance increase, that's for the staff, not for any students.
No, it's for staff, right? And over the course of the last 5 years, it's gone up by 60%.
75.1% since 2018 when they moved us over to this plan.
It's working great, can't you tell?
But they did put out some information that there's a $20 million prescription, because we're in a self-insured plan, and they have $20 million allotted for prescriptions, and 2% of the population of the people that are vested have spent 55%. So there's like 279 people, which represents 2% of people enrolled in this policy spent that much. A lot more hospitalizations, pharmaceuticals have gone up, a lot of reasons.
And it's something that every year we sort of cringe waiting to hear what it's going to be. And we do not have control. Right, we do have some savings. We have two programs that are two TRSU programs that are run and housed at Ludlow Elementary School. We have a program for students with autism, and over the course of next year, we anticipate that we will save nearly $500,000, $495,000 for having students in the house rather than spending tuition for them to be outplaced. We also have some out-of-district students who are part of this program who pay us tuition. So we have $59,000 for that. Our social emotional needs program, which has been larger at the moment, most of the students that we've had within that program have been successfully transitioning back into general education classrooms. So we are no longer having multiple students who would need outplacement, which is a wonderful thing. But it is good for us to have it available if we need it. So a little over $500,000 as a result of having those programs in place.
On the LMH budget,
Tier issue, special ed.
and how much of that is assessed to LMH?
Not broken down like that.
Oh, okay,
I
so
found
it's all, so this savings of 511, that is to the TRSU budget, not to the LMH. Okay, got it.
That's not
which then
that's not year to year, right?
No, it's different every year.
Right. I mean, that's,
This is what we anticipate savings based on students who we would have to outplace next year that we don't have to.
right. So it's not $500,000 less than what we're doing this year. And every year we have savings.
Every year we've
More or
had
less than
savings.
the agenda.
Yeah.
Some of that's the enrollment that we have.
Right.
So this is the savings to the special education costs for the TRSU, which in turn means that's savings that gets allocated and assessed back. Overall, and within the folders that you will see all of the details for both Ludlow and for Mount Holly. Overall, Ludlow Elementary School's budget for next year would be a decrease. That as Deb was discussing, that her plan for making sure that we have the math support that we need doesn't involve adding another teacher based on the number of students in each one of our classrooms. As you will recall, this board made a decision about 2 years ago that we were not going to, that we're trying to right size our classrooms through attrition, through resignation or retirement. So when a teacher leaves for either resignation or retirement, we're only replacing that teacher if our class sizes within the building are all somewhere in that 13 to 18 student total. So when we have class sizes, if we have class sizes of 6, 7, and 8, we are reorganizing the classes rather than hiring new people. We're also trying not to pink slip anybody. We want to keep the faculty that we have. So this proposal that we would repurpose a teacher so that they can provide the math support that students need while keeping our classes at the appropriate size. Did you want to talk about other particular things within the budget? That's fine.
So at this point, if there are questions,
Right. This is the first look at it.
I mean, it's the first look and it was my first go round.
Yep.
With, trying to figure out where things go and what things get attention.
Can you say something, why was the actual last year so much less than, is that because we had one less teacher than was in the original budget? I'm saying the actual was 150,000 less than.
We wind up with what we budget for and what it actually turns out to be is frequently very different. That could be about students being, coming and going. It could be about the person that we hired turned out not to be different than what we budgeted for. It can be that we budgeted for a position and then didn't fill it, or that things that we thought were going to cost more than they cost. We can certainly go through and find out exactly what it is. We've got the numbers for it, but I don't have at the top of my head what that was.
If you look quickly and see one or two things, you'll be interested, but not a research project.
Right, well, if you go in and you look at the spreadsheet that I did, you can look at each district and kind of go down through and see what the changes are.
As far as you can see, that this year will be more or less like the budget. I mean, the actual, I mean.
We
it's not-
always anticipate that it's going to be, we budgeted for what we think it's going to be.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, in your report earlier, you didn't identify any big variances one way or the other.
No.
So.
I mean, you could.
No, I'm not saying it will be that, but you haven't seen any reason why it would be much more, or much
Not-
less so far. Is that
Not
fair?
at the moment.
Right.
I mean, as you look at for Mount Holly, the difference between what we budgeted for and what was actual was about $40,000 instead of a difference of but the Mount Holly has an increase, and the primary reason for that, one of the reasons for that increase is we're adding in our building sub positions have been ESSER funded, and if we're keeping them, which I recommend that we do, if we are keeping those positions, then that has to become a general funded position. We won't have the ESSER funds to pay for it anymore. That is not a $263,000
We
difference.
have two additional years that we did in the building. We did increase some of the maintenance, repairs and maintenance and stuff like that. And health insurance. Health insurance is going to be totally. Health insurance.
All right, Judy. Oh, you're gonna mute. I think you're gonna mute. All right, there you go. Now you're good.
So earlier in the presentation, Lauren, I think you said that that part of the reason for the increase in our budget was the proposed building renovation. So did you put that figure directly in this budget, or are we going to vote on that as a separate article?
So we put the interest into this budget just based on what Cheryl thinks. If the bond passed, what our likely interest payment for next year would be. We're giving that to you as part of what if we would, because you won't know whether you're passing the budget or not until after, whether you're passing the bond until after we have to decide on the budget.
We won't know whether we're passing the bond. Well,
So we have
can you repeat that? I didn't get that.
So we have to decide what our budget is going to be for next year. And we have to have made that decision by roughly the second week in January. And if we're going to plan on paying interest out of next year's budget for a bond, we would include that in this budget. But we won't know whether the bond has passed until March.
But my point is, wouldn't it make more sense to warn that as a special article, the interest, based on the fact that if the budget passes, then, if the bond passes, then we have an article to pay the interest rather than sticking it in our budget. Because if it doesn't pass, then we're going to have this big surplus in our budget. And it will show as a lesser increase in our budget. And we vote for them separately. That's my point. And that might be a discussion for the future, but I'd like to see that broken out and see what it would look like if it was a special article compared to having it embedded in our budget when we don't even know whether it will pass or not.
Right, but we also need funds for that. we have to raise taxes for that, and the way we
But
raise.
couldn't you put that in the article? Like the article, we're going to raise taxes.
So I'd have to ask how to do that.
Yeah, I think we could word it that way. That might be like something we could figure out by the next meeting.
And I think we certainly could do it and could do it that way. It's also the case, though, that if we put it into our capital reserves and the bond doesn't pass, but the budget does, then you've put money in that if your bond hasn't passed, you have money that could go towards doing some of the projects that you would want to do, even if the bond didn't pass.
Like a good example of that is the furnace and the oil tank in Mount Holly. Like that's
And if we get that $250,000 grant, I think we have a timeline of how to, that we have to use it with it.
I mean, I think it is, and I hear your point, Judy, and I think it is possible to do it that way. I would be concerned, though, that if we do that and the bond fails, then we already know that some of the things that are going to be in that bond, if the bond fails, we're still going to have to pay for them. And if we haven't put some of that money aside, how are we going to do that? And maybe it's a lesser amount that we put in, something we can talk about when we need it anyway. Then I would get a little concerned about how much are we putting in to make sure we can pay for those things, and then how are we being clear about the difference between that amount and what the interest would be, and whether. But we certainly can look at it that way.
I think the wording can go in the article, and that would be that you would pass that amount of money, and that would be included in your taxes. I think that can be done. I think it would be worth checking into what the wording could be.
Got it. Yes.
All right, just finishing up with the increase about the building subs, because we won't have the ESSER funds for it anymore. Was there anything else, Greg, for yours? The high school student expenses, that is an overall increase of about 10%, a difference of $250,000. The majority of that is actually all of that is our tuition increases. We're looking at a couple more students.
We have 7 more students this year, next year than we have this year. And also the state average is 18,266 and rising every
And it's preliminary beginning.
So one thing I'd like to share that you'll see when you get into the folder is food service. I've actually pulled that out to a separate fund. That is on the recommendation of child nutrition. And so it's going to run as its own entity. And in the general fund budget, you'll see one line that will be food service support. So that's like the net revenue against expense. We always run at a deficit. This way it's a little more shows more. It's more obvious, I guess is the word I want to use, because we'll have that one line that will support that. So some of your, next year, your reports will change so that food service will be separate. It won't be within the general fund at the end of that. And I've done that starting with this budget. So the only other thing that I'd like to talk about is the funding formula, and I'm not really going to talk about it. I went over it in June. I did a presentation. I took the information that had been provided by the state, and we talked about what it would look like for Ludlow-Mount Holly, and they were going to have some extra money they could play with. And yeah, I don't know what happened. That's just travel. I did an estimate. I had it on here. I took it off. It's playing out differently than I thought. I think it still puts us in a good position, but I also don't want to give false hope of that position that's putting us in. One of the big changes that has happened that I don't think the state anticipated either is that for free and reduced lunch, we have this, it's called direct certification. So it's families who are students that are on the state plan, whether they're on Reach Up, Foursquares, SNAP. They're on that list, and this year they added Medicaid, which changed our numbers incredibly. So as a district, as of April 1st last year, we were at 29.77%. Right now, we're at 55.28. And so that helps us in many different ways, but in this funding formula, for every student that we have, we get a weighted factor of 1.03. So that's adding on to the number of students in our long-term membership, which makes our cost per pupil less, and so it drops our tax rate. I think the state is scrambling a little bit with this, because it's changing how they look at it. And we're not able to get, I've been working with some numbers that Lauren has, but again, we don't have all of our students because they haven't been reported properly. So she's chasing after people to get them so that we know what our numbers are. They've given us a little formula. You know, it's based on the students that live in our district. So it's not looking at what is our enrollment. It's like how many kids from the town, not all the town, one lower, first grade, second grade, third grade. And each one are weighted a little different. And for free and reduced lunch, the other thing we're running into is that kids that are doing tuition, everybody, 7 to 12, we could have students at Mill River that are on free and reduced. We don't necessarily know. And so at first we thought the reporting mechanism would be that the state would report them as our student and also report their lunch status, and currently that's not happening. So next year we'll do this differently because we do a letter every summer and are you going to the same schools that changed, and now we're going to have this household income. EL students are in there. Our poverty. Oh, sorry, Judy.
I just having trouble hearing. I'm fine.
There's also a population. What's your population per square mile? That's a factor in there. And there's the small schools is the other one that's in there. So I did it, and it really dropped our tax rate. And initially, I thought that we had to at least maintain, based on what they said, is that this was not intended to get back to the taxpayers, which tells me that we have to maintain this tax rate. That's not what I meant. I don't know.
No, that is exactly what they meant. And they've been really clear about it.
Yes.
And they've at our meetings that is exactly what the state means.
Right.
The fact that there's no rule that says you must do it, and there isn't. Nobody ever said you had to. But the state has been crystal clear that they mean for us to maintain our tax rate.
Right.
And part of the problem that we'll have in both districts is that we've never sold our budget on our tax rate. And our town clerks don't want us to talk about the tax rate because we're wrong. People come in and say, they said, So we've never sold it. We've sold it on the bottom line. Now we're looking at 13.81% increase in but we're also looking at, so for the state, the important piece is the general state support grant. And that's how much needs to be raised by taxes. And this current budget that we have in front of us right now is a 9.75% increase to general state support grant.
Increase in what?
The general state support grant, which is what we have to raise in taxes. In my conversation with James today, because I had to send him some preliminary information, the average for everybody in the state is about a 10% increase to the general state support grant. So that in turn affects what the yield is going to be, because the yield is how much you raise per every 10,000, your dollar for every 10,000 tax. Whole math lesson in there. I'll get Julie involved in this.
Part of
So I hope by the time we meet again, we'll have some more concrete information about that I feel better about sharing.
part of our bottom line with it is the state's determination of the number of students that we are being credited with having under this formula, which has very little to do with the actual number of children who go to our schools. This is this weighting formula that then tells us whether we are giving credit for having 600 kids rather than 300 kids. And we won't know that till we know it. If the number that they determine for us is the one that some of the figures we have at the moment say it would be, then this increase would be a 13% increase, it would be exactly the same tax rate. So that the way the public would receive it is it would be the same cost. If it turns out another way, it may be less than it was. And if the numbers turn out another way, it might be more. And at the moment, we just don't know, which, as Paul can attest, was the conversation we had with our state representatives and other people saying, how are we supposed to do this?
Yeah.
And the answer was,
Just do it.
just do it.
So we're gonna pass a budget and not know all the final numbers.
Yeah.
It's pretty
As
much
always.
all us to do.
Yeah, and the other piece that we have is that we can't increase our tax rate more than 5%. Don't think that's gonna be an issue here, but there's also a 10% cap on your cost. But we're changing from equalized people to long-term winning membership, so we're changing our denominator.
Go to the class. Go to the seminar.
So when I look using our equalized people last year, we would have $2,220 to hit our 10%, and we're at $22,164 right now. So we're under that. We're still okay, but that's the mechanism I use to compare them. That may not be what the state uses to compare them. So stay tuned.
Yep. Stay tuned. All right.
And
any-
the
Governments too. Then.
Yeah.
The bond doesn't impact the cap. That's a different,
The cap, which cap?
like the 5% or,
Well, it would, because that's increasing taxes. For the equalized people, in the end, it would not.
okay.
There's some things that you can take off your equalized people. Not, because they had, here's the word. Apple, or what do I want to say? Threshold. For equalized people, and they've got rid of it. But there are things, and that has to do with your bonds. That you do that as well as a couple other things, for excessive costs for special ed, things like that. When I do the formula for you, I don't take that all into consideration. It's, if we're really pulling the line, we're going to get penalized after that stuff. But once we can see
Amber wanted the name, the food service move was based on whose recommendation?
child nutrition.
Thank you.
All right. So we're all good with that first round of budget and how all that works. Go to that seminar on November 14th.
14th.
At least sign up for it, so at least you can get the link. So that hopefully they'll record it. But as you can tell, it's
It's
very
complicated.
simple.
It's like,
It seems like the state,
how can we manipulate the numbers to get you paid more?
who knows? But all
I
right,
mean,
so we'll.
there is a pool of money, and this is just a shift, to try to get money to students by using the free reduced lunch.
Board members at the workshop we were at asked the question, what can we do in order to make sure that we're not facing these problems? And the answer was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
That it is about what the determination is made through these formulas determines how much you need to raise or not raise. And it's a head shake.
Yeah, and some of the losers in the category that would technically need to cut their budget, they're supposed to cut their budget, but they're not supposed to have a less cost per pupil.
Yeah.
So
How do you do that? Well, and there are restrictions on it. If you go above, if you wind up above a certain place in some of these things, then you are going to have to make an argument in front of a committee. They this group referred to it as an inquisition. But you would have to make an argument in front of a committee to prove that you were allowed to raise it or lower it that amount. Otherwise, there'd be an additional penalty, and no one can give any details about what any of it means.
This is what happens with legislation. They make the legislation, but they do not follow through how to pass it. Like they don't leave it in someone else's lap to interpret.
So we will have more, hopefully more information when we are seeing you the second Wednesday in December,
yeah.
which will be the, what is our deadline in January? Do we have another time in January? We may need to have an additional meeting after that, depending on where the numbers are. Most of the time, we've been able to give you enough in the way of a definitive amount about it so that we can be finalizing that in either December or the beginning of January. But if you think of other things, let us know, and you'll have access to all of that information on the website.
And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
I don't have answers, but you can reach out.
Please repeat the question. Refer to the state, give it the same response. You know. All right, so we go with the budget for now and the whole financial thing, beautiful. All right. Community reports. So I get used to it after a while. You know, I've been on this for a while. 30 years, it's like the same thing. It's gonna be better. It's gonna be better. Maybe they should start doing things that aren't gonna be better and might become better, you know? Just come up with a horrible formula and like, wow, it's so great now. All right, so committee reports. So I'll be quick on this. One thing on TRSU we did is we have our goals that we're gonna accomplish by the end of the year, or the fiscal year, well, some of them. So the first one is for administration. It says we're gonna receive the administration definition of student success, first consideration by the end of this school year, 21st school year. Let's see, the boards, we're gonna revise and finalize our draft vision statement by our January board meeting. We're gonna work on the next 2 board meetings, but we really need a draft, we really need a vision statement. It's very important. Let's see, we're gonna revise and finalize a comprehensive 3-year board calendar. That'll include continuing board development by July of by our July board retreat. And let's see. And the TRSU board will hire a new superintendent by June 30th. We're doing great on that goal. We're cruising right along. So I feel like 2 stars for that, you know. Hopefully we'll have them by February, and then the last one's going to be, we're going to develop a simple and clear superintendent evaluation system by hopefully the January board meeting or February, and before we hire the superintendent. So we're going to work on that evaluation because we really need one for the new superintendent coming in. So those are our goals that we're doing at the TRSU level. So come to our meetings and give us input to these goals. We're going to do like little workshops in the meeting to meet these goals and get them done. So any questions on that? That's it. Anything else for TRSU? I think that was it. All right, the policy committee. We're bringing back the H3 and the H4, and we're going to have some more. And our meeting is in November, I think.
December.
December 4th is our policy committee meeting. It's a Monday at 6 p.m. at Fletcher Farm, right behind the TRSU building. So if you'd like to come to that, it's always a fun time at the policy committee meeting. Anything on that, Judy? Are we good?
But we have candy unless the new wellness policy takes it away.
We're not students.
We're not students, and it's not during the school day. You can bring.
I shouldn't have told you.
So like kids can't bring, I'm sorry, this is like bothering me. So kids can't bring in cupcakes for their birthday and share with their class?
Do you want the official answer to that?
No, I do not.
I missed that, and that's where I got
Unless the first item is a whole grain in those cupcakes.
I throw in like a granola bar at them at first, like.
You could use almond flour.
This has been a discussion in most places for the last 20 years. And it's been the case here. I'm just reminding people of it. It's been true here for the last 5 years.
All right, facilities committee.
Well, no, at the next meeting, we're expecting Eric to come.
Yes.
And it'll be a big chunk of time, probably.
the presentation next month.
Right.
Yep. All right. Policies approved at this meeting. It was F9 transportation and G10 cybersecurity. Beautiful. Public comments. Nutrition? Is that what anybody can say? How much they don't like it, but that's okay. All right. Any public comments? No? All right. Our next meeting date is going to be December 13th. Professional development room at Ludlow Elementary School and on Zoom. And we're going to have on there the lovely budget. We'll bring back the 4 first read policies. We're going to have the EEI presentation. So I don't know. Do you know how long that's going to be? Probably about half hour.
I asked him, but I didn't hear that.
All right. Okay. Tell them no more than a half hour.
We'll tell him, well, yes.
Right. Yep. So, and then I think that's going to be it. I'll give an update on the search again, and then about it. Unless anybody had anything else to add right now.
Did you?
Yeah, go ahead.
If we have a presentation of a half an hour and the budget, do you think it would be a good idea not to have a lot of department reports for that one meeting? Give them a night off? Because otherwise it's going to be really long between the two of them. Those are
Right.
2 long agenda items.
I mean, if they're okay with that.
And I think we still need to hear from our superintendent principals, but
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like curriculum reports and everything.
not the curriculum.
All right. All right. So you guys get the night off. We'll get the night off, right?
We'll still provide the written.
Yeah, you could provide the rate. Yep. Okay, that's a good idea, Judy. Yep. So remember that, buddy. Next month, superintendent, principals. Keep it short, simple. Finance report, short, simple. Get the whole bucket. All right. Good idea. Anything else? Short, simple. All right. Beautiful. All right. Our lovely self-evaluation here. We've read the agenda, background material prior to the meeting. That's a thumbs up. We respect each other, the public, the administration. Yes, we're always nice. Let's see, we handle conflict openly and constructively. Yes. As we focus on the roles, responsibility of the board. I believe there was no micromanaging tonight. So, but yes, we have big fire tower level. That's what we do. And then, or satellite level. That's a good one. And then we act as a team once a decision's been made, and we work collaboratively throughout the decision making. Yes, we did. All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, Dave makes that one. Dave seconds it. All right. We're adjourned. 7. I got 7. That'd be good.
Sounds good.
All right.